The market on Station Zetra 9 was not a place for soft hearts. It was where smugglers, pirates, and slavers did business. The air smelled of smoke, oil, and fear. People traded everything here: stolen weapons, strange creatures, and sometimes living beings. Rick Carter, a human scavenger, walked slowly between the stalls. His hands were in his pockets, but his eyes watched everything. He was not rich, not strong, but he was smart. That was why he was still alive. He was looking for parts for his ship, but something else caught his ear. A group of aliens stood near a dark cage. They spoke in hushed voices, but Rick caught a few words. Her bite kills instantly. Even a scratch melts flesh. Useless now. Can't control her. Rick's curiosity woke up. He walked closer. Inside the cage. In the dim light, he saw her. A girl. She was not human, but close enough. She had gray-blue skin, thin glowing lines running along her arms like veins of light. Her hair was silver-white, messy, and long. She wore nothing but rags. Chains bound her hands, feet, and neck. A metal muzzle covered her mouth, locked tightly. But her eyes, they glowed softly, pale blue, and full of something strange. Not hate. Not anger. It was fear. Rick frowned. She didn't look like a killer. She looked like a scared child. He turned to the aliens. What's her story? Rick asked. One of the traders, a thick reptilian with cracked scales, spat on the ground. She's a death machine. Born to bite, born to kill, venom in her teeth. She was made in a lab somewhere. Warlords used her as an assassin. Then why is she here in chains? She bit the wrong master. Now no one trusts her. She's dangerous. No one dares get close. Rick stared at the girl. She stared back, shaking slightly, like she expected pain. The trader laughed. If you touch her, human, you'll die fast. Rick didn't like being told what he could or couldn't do. Without thinking, he stepped forward, knelt by the cage, and looked into her eyes. She flinched, curling tighter, her chains rattling. Rick spoke gently. Hey, I'm not here to hurt you. The girl stared, her eyes shimmering, unsure. Then, in a flash, she lunged forward. Her teeth clamped on Rick's hand, biting hard, even through the muzzle. It wasn't deep, but it broke the skin. The trader shouted, expecting Rick to scream, melt, or drop dead. But nothing happened. Rick blinked. Stared at his hand. It hurt, sure, but it wasn't burning. It wasn't melting. I single quotes am. Fine. He muttered. The traders backed away, whispering. This was not supposed to happen. Inside the cage, the girl trembled. She whispered, her voice muffled, but clear. You single quotes read. Different. Rick leaned closer. What did you say, you? Not like them, she whispered. They die, but you don't. Rick's mind raced. Her venom killed aliens, but not humans? What's your name? He asked. She was silent for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, she answered, Zara. Rick stood up, his eyes cold on the traders. How much for her? The reptilian laughed. She's worthless. Take her if you want, human. She kill you later. Rick pulled a few credits from his pocket, tossed them without counting, and opened the cage. Zara didn't move. She stared at him, shaking. Rick knelt again, unlocked her chains slowly. She winced every time metal clicked open. Then he removed the muzzle. She gasped for air, her lips bruised. Rick offered his hand. Come on, I'm not leaving you here. She stared. No one had ever offered her a hand before. Slowly, carefully, she reached out, her cold fingers touching his. Rick helped her stand. She was light, weak, her body shaking. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. You bit me, Rick said, smiling slightly. But I guess I'll let that slide. Zara's eyes widened. You not afraid? Not yet, Rick chuckled. The traders watched them leave, whispering that the human was a fool. But Rick didn't care. Something told him this girl was more than a weapon. Back on his ship, Rick gave Zara water and food. She ate slowly, watching him like he was some strange creature. "Why didn't your venom kill me?" Rick asked. Zara. "Look down. Your kind is immune. My venom. Made for them," she whispered. "I don't know why." Rick stared at her, thoughtful. An alien girl made to kill, but powerless against humans. Somehow, he knew his life had just become very, very complicated. But for the first time in years, Rick smiled to himself. He wasn't alone anymore, and that was just the beginning. Rick's ship was small, rusty, and barely working, but it was home. Zara sat on the cold metal floor, her knees pulled to her chest. She watched Rick silently, as if waiting for him to hurt her, to chain her again. But Rick didn't. He gave her water, a blanket, and a seat. Then he sat across from her, looking at his bitten hand. The wound was small, healing already. "No pain, no poison, no death. All right, Zara," he said, voice calm but firm. "Tell me the truth. Why didn't your bite kill me?" Zara's voice was soft, uncertain. "Because you're human." Rick raised an eyebrow. "That's not an answer." She hugged herself tighter, her glowing veins dim. "My venom was made in a lab. I was made to kill aliens, all aliens, but your species. Your blood is different. I bite humans. Nothing happens." Rick frowned. "You were made?" Zara nodded slowly. "They took me when I was small, changed me, put venom in my bones, my teeth, my blood. Every bite, death. They made me a weapon." Her voice cracked. "I didn't want to, but when I bite, they die screaming. I'm cursed." Rick watched her. The girl wasn't lying. He could see it in her trembling hands, her shaking breath. She wasn't a killer by choice. She was made into one. "Then why did you bite me?" Rick asked. She looked up, eyes wet. "I thought you would hurt me." Rick stayed quiet for a while. He understood. In this part of space, no one was kind. Without a price. She was only trying to survive. "You're safe here," Rick finally said. "I'm not going to hurt you." Zara's lips trembled. "You'll sell me, like the others." "No," Rick said. "I won't." Zara looked at him, confused. "Why?" Rick shrugged. "Maybe I'm stupid. Or maybe I'm tired of watching people being treated like tools." Zara didn't answer. She simply stared, as if unsure whether to believe him. Just then, a sharp alarm blared across the ship. Rick's console flashed red. "Damn it," Rick muttered. "We've got company." He ran to the cockpit. Zara followed, weak but curious. Through the cracked window, Rick saw two small pirate crafts approaching. "They must have tracked us from the station," Rick said. "They want you back." Zara's breath quickened. "They'll kill us." "Not if I can help it." Rick grabbed his blaster, but his ship had no real weapons. He wasn't a fighter, he was a scavenger. But he couldn't run either. The engines were too slow. "We're sitting ducks," Rick muttered. Zara stepped forward. "I can fight." Rick looked at her, unsure. "You can barely stand." She stared at him, eyes glowing faintly. "Let me bite them," Rick blinked. "You serious?" She nodded. "If I bite them, they die. I can protect." Rick thought fast. It was a crazy idea, but maybe their only shot. "I'll need to get close," he said. "Close enough to board them," Zara nodded. "I'll do it." Minutes later, Rick docked with the first pirate ship. He told Zara to stay behind him. They entered together, Rick's blaster ready. Pirates, ugly and armed, laughed when they saw Rick. "Where's the girl, human?" one pirate sneered. "Hand her over, and maybe we won't space you." Rick smiled coldly. "You want her?" "She's right here." Zara stepped forward. The pirates laughed until she lunged. She was fast, faster than she looked. Her teeth sank into the neck of the first pirate. He screamed, then collapsed, his skin burning, eyes wide in horror. The others fired, but Rick shot back, covering her. Zara bit another, and another. Each one fell, foaming and twitching, dead in seconds. Soon the pirates lay dead or dying, their bodies smoking where her venom worked. Zara panted, weak again, but alive. She looked at Rick, eyes sad. "They're dead," she whispered. Rick stepped closer, touching her shoulder gently. "You saved us, but I'm a monster." "No," Rick said firmly. "You're a survivor." They returned to Rick's ship, but Zara collapsed, her body shaking. Rick caught her before she fell. "What's wrong?" "My body. The venom ... It's eating me too," she whispered. "I'm breaking inside." Rick cursed under his breath. He couldn't lose her now. Not after she saved his life. He laid her on the bed, her glowing veins flickering like dying lights. "There has to be a cure," Rick said to himself. "Someone out there must know how to fix this." Zara grabbed his hand weakly. "Why help me?" Rick looked down at her, then smiled softly. "Because I've seen enough death, Zara. It's time I saved someone." As Zara closed her eyes, Rick stared at the stars outside. Tomorrow he would find a way to save her, even if it killed him. Zara's breathing was shallow, her glowing veins fading like dying lights. She looked fragile now, like a candle close to burning out. Rick sat beside her, his mind racing for a solution. He had no medicine, no special equipment, and no allies. In this part of the galaxy, he needed help, and fast. But time wasn't on their side. Suddenly, the ship's scanners beeped, shrill and loud. Rick checked the display. A large cruiser had just entered their zone, marked with a symbol he knew too well, the Black Talon slavers. They weren't pirates. They were worse, Rick cursed. They must have tracked the pirates we killed. The COMS crackled with a deep, cold voice. "Human vessel. We know you have the asset. Surrender the girl, and we'll let you live. Refuse, and we'll cut your ship apart." Rick looked back at Zara. She was barely conscious, her lips moving but no sound coming out. He clenched his fists. "No way I'm handing her over." But Rick knew his ship couldn't outrun a cruiser. He had one choice: hide in the junk fields orbiting the nearby moon. It was a graveyard of old wrecks and broken ships, dense and dangerous, but it was his only chance. He powered up the engines and shot toward the debris field. The cruiser fired, laser shots slicing past, one grazing his wing. The ship shook violently, warning lights blinking red. "We'll tear you apart, human." The slaver growled through the comms. Rick dodged into the junk, weaving between rusted hulls and floating scrap. The cruiser chased, but its larger size made it clumsy in the dense field. Still, Rick knew it wouldn't take long for them to catch up. He needed a plan. That's when he remembered an old smuggler's trick: hide inside a dead ship. Rick scanned the wrecks. Around him, eyes darting, he spotted a huge derelict freighter, hollow and open. He steered his ship inside, cutting all power the moment they crossed the threshold. The lights on his ship went dark. Only the sound of Zara's weak breathing filled the silence. The slaver cruiser prowled outside, scanning. "We know you're in here, human. Run all you want." Inside the dark, Rick gently touched Zara's face. She flinched, her skin cold. "Hang on, Zara," he whispered. "I'll get us out." She opened her eyes faintly. "They want me ... I'm not giving you to them." Her hand, weak and trembling, grabbed his wrist. "They LL ... kill you." Rick smiled softly. "They'll have to catch me first." Suddenly, the cruiser sent small drones into the junk field, scanning for life signs. Rick's heart raced. If the drones picked up Zara's faint energy, they were dead. Rick thought fast. He remembered the old power core of the freighter was still partially active, leaking radiation. If he could mask Zara's energy signal with that. Without wasting a second, Rick carried her out of his ship, deeper into the freighter wreck. He moved fast but careful, avoiding sharp metal and broken panels. He found the old core, its weak radiation buzzing faintly. Rick laid Zara near it, her breath shallow. He reactivated part of the core's shielding, just enough to scramble scans without cooking them alive. Minutes passed. The drones buzzed past, scanning, but the radiation interference worked. They passed by without noticing. Zara's eyes fluttered open weakly. "Why, help me so much?" Rick knelt beside her, smiling. "Because you're not a weapon, you're a person. And I don't leave people behind." A soft tear slid down her cheek. "You'll die because of me." "Not if I can help it." Suddenly, a loud metallic clang echoed through the wreck. Rick's blood went cold. The slavers had boarded the freighter. He pulled out his old blaster, checking the charge. Half full. Not great. He looked at Zara. "Stay quiet, no matter what." She nodded faintly, too weak to even sit up. Rick crept into the corridors of the dead freighter. Shadows stretched long in the darkness. Then he saw them. 3 slavers, tall, armored, carrying shock batons. Their helmets scanned the area. Find the girl. Kill the human. Rick waited until one was close, then fired. The shot hit square in the chest. The slaver dropped instantly. The others turned, shouting. Rick ducked, firing again, hitting another. But the last one was fast. It charged, slamming Rick into the wall. The blaster flew from Rick's hand. Slaver growled, lifting his baton. End of the lying human. Suddenly, a blur. A shadow moved fast from behind Zara. She had crawled silently, her last strength burning. She bit the slaver's leg, her venom pumping in. The slaver screamed, his armor melting where she bit. His legs buckled, foam spilling from his mouth. He collapsed, twitching, then stilled. Zara collapsed too, breathing hard, barely alive. Rick crawled to her, holding her close. "You're insane, but thank you," she smiled weakly. "Not weapon. No," Rick whispered. "You're my partner now." They couldn't stay. The cruiser was still out there. But Rick had a plan now, to find someone who could cure Zara and end the slaver's hunt for good. He carried her back to the ship, engines rumbling to life. As they escaped into the void, Rick whispered, "I don't know why your bite doesn't kill me, Zara, but I swear I'll find out, and I'll save you." The stars stretched before them. The hunt had just begun. Rick's ship limped through the stars, barely holding together after the last fight. Inside, Zara lay on a narrow bed, her breath shallow, her glowing veins pulsing faintly like fading lights. She was dying, and Rick knew it. Time was running out. He stared at the navigation screen, his mind racing. There was only one name he could think of: Dr. Mavic Kale, a genius, a criminal. A man who was exiled from the core worlds for his experiments on alien biology. Rumors said he could fix anything: broken bodies, dying species, bioweapons. For the right price, and for the wrong people. Rick locked in the coordinates. "Hold on, Zara," he whispered. "If anyone can save you, it's him." The journey wasn't easy. They had to pass through pirate zones, avoid slaver patrols, and drift through asteroid fields. Rick barely slept, checking Zara every hour. Each time, her light was dimmer. After 2 days, they reached an isolated planet, Carnice 12. It was a dead world, gray and cold, clouds heavy with ash, no cities, no life. Only a single tower stood in the middle of the wasteland, black and tall like a broken needle. Rick landed nearby, grabbing his blaster. He carried Zara in his arms. She was too weak to walk. As he approached the tower, mechanical eyes watched from the walls. Suddenly, speakers cracked alive. "State your purpose or be vaporized," Rick shouted back. "I need Mavic Kale. I have credits." Silence. Then the heavy metal door creaked open. Inside, the walls were covered in wires, machines, and tanks filled with floating creatures Rick couldn't even name. Strange lights blinked. It smelled of chemicals, and rot. At the center stood a man, tall, thin, his skin pale like bone, his eyes artificial and glowing red. His white coat was stained with blood and oil. "You seek Mavic Kale," the doctor said with a voice like cold steel. "What do you bring?" Rick stepped forward, showing Zara. "She's dying. You can fix her." Mavic's eyes scanned her body. He smiled thinly. "Ah, the living Venom girl. I've heard of you." "You can save her?" Rick asked. Mavic chuckled. "I can save anything. But there is a price." Rick gritted his teeth. "How much?" "I don't want credits," Mavic said. "I want her." Rick's eyes narrowed. "No deal." Mavic raised a hand. "Let me finish. I want to study her. Her venom is unique. I need samples, tissue, data. I'll save her life, but only if I can experiment freely." Zara, barely awake, whispered weakly, "Don't let him." Rick looked at her, then back at Mavic. He had no choice. Zara would die without help. "Fine," Rick said. "But if you hurt her, I'll kill you myself." Mavic smiled. Spoken like a true protector. He led Rick to a lab filled with scanners and tanks. Machines hissed and buzzed. Mavic worked fast, injecting Zara with stabilizing fluids, attaching wires, scanning her veins. "She's burning from the inside," Mavic muttered. "Her venom is eating her organs." "Brilliant, yet tragic. Can you fix her or not?" Rick snapped. Mavic's hands danced across the controls. "Yes, but I'll need a bio-core, rare tech from the core worlds. It'll help regulate her venom. Without it, she'd die in days." Rick's heart sank. A bio-core was priceless and heavily guarded. "I don't have one," Mavic smiled darkly. "Then steal it." "From where?" "The trade hub on Vecran 5, deep in slaver territory. Good luck, human." Rick clenched his fists. It was suicide, but Zara had no time. He stood. "I'll get it." Before he left, Zara grabbed his hand weakly. Her eyes fluttered open. "Don't leave me here." Rick knelt close. "I'll come back, Zara. I promise. You'll live." Her voice was faint. "You're the only one. Who sees me." Rick squeezed her hand. "And I'm not losing you." With that, he stormed out, his mind burning with determination. He would face the slavers. He would steal the bio-core, even if it killed him, because for the first time in a long while, Rick wasn't just fighting to survive. He was fighting for someone worth saving. The planet Vecran 5 was called the Graveyard of Mercy, because no mercy was ever given there. The surface was covered in steel and scrap, with giant towers of slavers, pirates, and mercenary kings. It was a place where life was cheap, but security was not. Rick Carter stood on a rooftop, his blaster strapped to his side, his eyes locked on the central vault building. That was where the bio-core was kept, the only thing that could save Zara's life. He had one shot. If he failed, she was dead. If he succeeded, he'd still have to make it out alive. Rick wasn't a soldier, but he was desperate. That made him dangerous. He studied the vault's defenses, pulse cannons, patrol bots, and the worst of all, the warden mechs, giant armored machines with heavy weapons. Suicide to fight directly. So Rick did what humans were best at, being sneaky, under cover of darkness. He slipped through the scrap alleys, using shadows and noise to hide his steps. He climbed walls, crawled through ventilation shafts, every second risking exposure. After hours, he reached the vault core, a thick steel door with fingerprint and eye scan locks. He smiled grimly. "Good thing I borrowed that dead slaver's hand," he muttered, pulling a severed cold hand from his bag. With some wires and a stolen eye, he bypassed the scan. The door clicked open with a heavy hiss. Inside, on a pedestal, was the bio-core, a glowing sphere of silver and blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. Rick grabbed it quickly, stuffing it in his pack. That's when alarms screamed. Intruder detected. Lights blazed, footsteps thundered. Rick cursed and ran. Behind him, mechs roared to life, their steps shaking the ground. Bullets and lasers rained down, missing him by inches. Rick sprinted through the halls, dodging fire, sliding under doors. He climbed out a vent just as a mech's fist crushed the wall behind him. He didn't stop running. By the time he reached his ship, blood ran down his arm from a grazing shot. His lungs burned. But he was alive. He blasted off the surface, his heart pounding. In his hands, the biocore shined. He smiled through the pain. Hang on, Zara, I'm coming back. Hours later, Rick landed back on Carney's 12, outside the doctor's tower. He ran inside, shouting, I got it, I have the core. But the lab was too quiet. No machines humming. No footsteps. Then he saw her. Zara, strapped to a cold metal table, wires stabbed into her arms. Her eyes closed, her veins almost black. She wasn't breathing right. Standing over her was Dr. Mavic Kale, his metal eyes glowing brighter. You're too late, Rick, Mavic said coldly. She's dying. I had to proceed. Rick's eyes narrowed. You said you'd wait. I got you the core, Mavic chuckled. And now I have both the core and her. She is more than a girl. She's the blueprint of a living weapon. Once I finish modifying her, I'll create an army. Rick pulled his blaster, rage burning in his chest. You lied to me. Mavic smiled darkly. Of course. That's what humans do, don't they? Lie when it suits them. Rick fired. Mavic dodged, ducking behind machinery. But suddenly, Rick heard Zara whisper weakly, R. Rick. Her eyes fluttered open, tears at the corners. She was still alive, barely. Rick ran to her side, yanking the wires out, ignoring her cries of pain. I'm here, Zara. I'm here. Behind them, Mavic activated a security bot, tall, armed, red lights in its chest. It stomped toward Rick. But before it could strike, Zara, with the last of her strength, bit Rick's arm. Rick gasped. Zara? What? But he felt it, her venom flowing into his blood, mixed with pain and fire. His vision blurred, but his muscles burned with sudden power. His veins glowed faintly like hers. Zara whispered, You can survive my bite now. You have my strength. Rick turned, his body surging with new energy. He charged the bot, dodging faster than before, his punches stronger. He smashed the bot's head off with one brutal strike, sparks flying everywhere. Mavic stared in shock. Impossible. Rick grabbed him, pressing the blaster to his chest. This is for lying, Rick growled, and fired. The doctor fell, dead before he hit the ground. Rick lifted Zara into his arms, the biocore glowing nearby. You're gonna live, Rick whispered. I'll make sure of it. He placed the core against her chest where her veins pulsed weakly. The device sank in, merging with her body, stabilizing her venom, her heart, her life. Slowly, her breathing calmed. The light in her veins returned. She opened her eyes, weak but alive. Rick. You came back. Rick smiled gently. I told you I would. She closed her eyes, tears falling. Thank you. For seeing me. Rick carried her out of the dark lab, the tower collapsing behind them. In the distance, the dead world looked just as empty. But Rick felt something new. Hope. Because Zara wasn't a weapon anymore. And neither of them was alone. Rick sat in the pilot seat of his ship, staring out into the cold void of space. The stars blurred past as the ship drifted on autopilot. But his mind was not on the stars. It was on the girl resting in the bed behind him. Zara. She had been asleep for hours, ever since the biocore merged into her chest. The device was still glowing faintly, pulsing like a second heartbeat inside her. It was keeping her alive, but something else was happening too. Her veins glowed brighter than before. Her skin no longer pale, but rich with a soft shimmer of blue and silver. She looked peaceful, but Rick knew better. Something was changing, and he didn't know if she'd wake up the same dot. Then he heard it. A soft gasp. Rick turned immediately. Zara's eyes had opened, and they glowed brighter than ever, like tiny stars. She sat up slowly, looking around, her hands trembling. Zara? Hey! You're awake, Rick said, relief washing over him. She touched her chest where the core had merged, her fingers tracing the faint glow under her skin. I feel strange, she whispered. Rick walked closer. Strange how? Zara looked up at him, her eyes wide. I don't feel like I'm dying anymore, but something's inside me, moving. Before Rick could ask more, Zara's body suddenly glowed brighter. Her breathing quickened, her eyes sharp and wild. Zara? Rick called, stepping back. Then she screamed, not in pain but in power. Her body erupted with waves of bioenergy. The air around her shimmered, the metal walls of the ship groaning under the sudden pressure. The light in her veins spread to her hands, her nails sharpening slightly, her muscles pulsing stronger. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Zara collapsed forward, breathing hard. Rick caught her gently. What was that? Rick asked. Zara's voice shook. My venom, it's evolved. Rick stared. Evolved? She nodded weakly. It's not just poison anymore, it's energy. I can feel it. I can control it now, I think. I can use it without killing. Rick blinked, unsure but impressed. So, you're not just a bite anymore. She smiled faintly. No, I'm something new. Before Rick could answer, the ship alarms blared. Rick cursed and ran to the controls. A massive dreadnought ship had appeared on the scanner, the Black Talon slavers, the very ones who had been hunting them. Rick's blood ran cold. They found us. A transmission crackled through, and the voice of the slaver commander echoed. Human, we warned you. Surrender the girl, or we'll tear your ship apart. Rick looked back at Zara. She was sitting up, her eyes glowing, her body steadier. I won't let them take you, Rick said. Zara stood slowly. Maybe I should face them. Rick frowned. You can barely stand. Zara shook her head. No, I can feel it, Rick. The core changed me. I can fight. But I'll need you, Rick nodded. Always. The slaver ship docked forcibly, and soon the ship shook with heavy footsteps. Dozens of slavers stormed in, armed, ready. They found Rick and Zara standing side by side in the cargo bay. The commander, a tall reptilian brute, sneered. Stand down, human, or we'll end you. Rick smiled coldly. You should have brought more. At that moment, Zara stepped forward. She raised her glowing hand, and with a pulse of thought, her energy surged. But instead of venom, it was like a wave of light, invisible but heavy. The first slavers froze mid-step, their limbs locking up. One by one, they fell to their knees, paralyzed, their bodies unable to move. The commander roared, firing his gun, but Rick shot first, knocking him back. Zara's energy spread, her control precise now. She was no longer just a girl with deadly teeth. She was a force. Her venom transformed into power she could direct. The battle ended quickly. The slavers, terrified, lay on the ground, unable to speak or move, their eyes wide in fear. Zara stood over them, her body glowing faintly. I'm not your weapon, she whispered. And I'm not your prisoner. Rick walked to her side, looking at the fallen commander. You should have left us alone. Then Rick fired the last shot, ending the commander for good. They returned to the cockpit. Zara leaned against the wall, her body still weak but steadier. You've changed, Zara, Rick said. You're not the same girl in chains anymore. She smiled. And you're not just a scavenger anymore, Rick. They looked at the stars ahead. but both knew more would come for them. Word would spread about the girl who could kill with a bite and now control a power no one understood. Rick didn't care. She was alive, she was free. And so was he. Together, they were unstoppable. And their story was just beginning. For the first time in her life, Zara stood without shaking. Her body felt whole. Her venom wasn't just poison anymore. It was energy, strength, and will. And beside her stood Rick, the only human she'd ever known who didn't see her as a weapon or a monster. But peace was never meant to last. Rick's scanners flashed a deadly red. A fleet was coming. Bigger than before. The Crimson Sovereign, the galaxy's most ruthless warlord, had heard of the girl with the evolved venom. He wanted her, not dead, but alive, to own her, to forge armies from her blood. Their ship was nowhere near strong. Enough to fight a fleet. Running wasn't an option anymore. Rick stood in the cockpit, staring at the incoming signal. They're here. Zara stepped up beside him. Then we end it here. Rick turned to her. There's no guarantee we survive. She smiled faintly. Then let's make sure they don't either, Rick grinned. That's the spirit. They made a plan, risky, insane. But their only shot. As the Crimson Sovereign's flagship approached, a deep voice echoed through their comms. Human, girl, this is your last breath. Surrender the asset, and I'll give you the mercy of a quick death. Rick pressed the comms button. Sorry, but we're all out of mercy. He cut the transmission. Then he and Zara stepped into the cargo bay. Rick had loaded old mining explosives into the hull, wired directly to the core reactor. But the detonator wouldn't be enough. Someone had to get close to the enemy ship to trigger the overload. I'm going, Rick said, but Zara shook her head. No, you can't survive the blast. I can, Rick frowned. Zara. She grabbed his hand gently, her eyes glowing soft and sad. I was made to kill, Rick, but if I can choose. I'll kill for us. For freedom. Rick's chest tightened. I didn't save you just to lose you now, Zara smiled. You're not losing me. I'm choosing this. Before he could argue, she pulled him close and whispered, You're the only one my bike couldn't kill. Remember that. Then, without warning, she bit him, softly, just enough for her venom to mix with his blood again. But this time, it wasn't deadly. It was a bond. Rick felt a surge of energy, a connection between them, as if part of her was now inside him. She stepped back, her body glowing brighter than ever, her veins like rivers of light. I'll find you again, she whispered. Then she launched herself from the ship, riding the vacuum of space like a comet of blue fire, heading straight for the Sovereign's flagship. The warlord's men panicked, firing all weapons at the streak of light, but nothing stopped her. She crashed into the ship's hull, her energy exploding outward. Inside, her body burned, her venom transforming into pure energy, eating through steel, circuits, and flesh alike. The Sovereign himself stood watching, but Zara looked into his eyes and smiled. You can't own me. With her final pulse, the biocore inside her ignited fully, merging her life force with the explosion. The flagship didn't just explode, it vanished, consumed by the pulse of living energy. From Rick's ship, he watched the light flare in the dark, a sunborn, and then gone. Silence followed. Rick sat alone, staring into the emptiness. He wanted to scream, to rage, but he felt her still, deep inside his blood, her bond alive. Then, faintly, the comms crackled. A whisper, weak but clear, told you. My bike couldn't kill you. Rick's eyes widened. Zara! She wasn't gone. Not fully. The venom she left in him carried her consciousness, a spark waiting to return. He smiled, tears in his eyes. I'm coming for you, Zara, wherever you are. The galaxy believed she was dead, but Rick knew better. Somewhere out there, in the endless stars, her light still burned, and he would find her, because some bites didn't end life. Some started it anew,